Hi everyone, it's Danielle Beal with Melanin Mental Health and Ministry, and I would like to share with you the why behind my passion for Black mental health awareness and also the inspiration for the Black Mental Health Matters tea and the Jesus and Therapy teas. So I am a licensed minister, a qualified mental health professional, trainee, and also a certified life coach. And guess what? I struggle too. Yep, you heard it right. I struggle too. So in undergrad, I majored in psychology and I earned a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology. And basically, my motivation for pursuing psychology was because of my childhood and the environment in which I grew up in. And so I desired to learn more about human behavior, the brain, about birth order, about the stages of development, about alcoholism. And so I desired to fix the home in which I lived. I desired to fix it, and so that was then, of course, maturity, education, and more knowledge later. I realized that I can only be responsible for myself. I don't desire to fix anyone. People have to desire it for themselves. And so for me, I've always had that passion to see healthy families and to understand healthy family dynamics. And so all of those things have always mattered to me and have led me to be intrigued. And so that, sparked my passion for psychology. And then at the age of 15, my best friend, she tragically died by a massive heart attack. And so at the age of 15, I'm navigating through the waters of grief and loss, something that was unfamiliar to me. I mean, one of the closest people to me, you know how it is in middle school, and like you have your best friend, you tell them everything, you talk on the phone for hours, and that's how it was between she and I. She was like a sister. And so that was a loss that I really, really struggled with, and I didn't know how to navigate through it. And looking back, I recognized I was depressed, um, definitely dealing with some anxiety as well. The experience was traumatic, and I wasn't able to recognize it as such. And so I've always been the person that writing has been my therapy. I love writing. I love writing. I cannot stress that enough. And so my writings became really dark at that age. And so I would always share my writings with my 10th grade English teacher at the time. And so at the end of each school year, I had a notebook that I would call my yearbook. And what I would do, I would have my friends and my not professor, well, in high school teacher. So I would have my teacher sign it. Just, I love receiving the positive messages. And so the English teacher, he left a very interesting message in my notebook. And so it's not verbatim. I don't remember the exact verbiage. But I know that it was to the extent that he said, you're a great writer, and I always remember you as a great writer who was depressed and sat in the back of the classroom. And so for me as an adult, when I look back over those moments, I'm like, that's so bad. Because my teacher saw that I was struggling, and he did not reach out to my mother, nor did he pull me to the side to have a conversation. And so for me, I wonder how many other Black children struggle silently. How many people actually see them declining, see their behaviors changing, see them sitting in the back of the classroom, see them becoming withdrawn and don't say anything. And so for me, our Black youth are drowning in grief. They're drowning in depression. They are drowning, and they do not have any outlets or anyone to talk to. And some people may be culturally competent, some people may not be, but regardless, people are not speaking out on what they see. And so even on the news, when we turn it on, we hear about the increase in suicide among Black youth, Black young adults, and Black adults as a whole. So our community as a collective is struggling. And so for me, I think back to that moment when I was 15. That was 2005. And so people were not talking about mental health back then to the degree that they are now openly. And so we have made progress, but there's still work to be done. And so many of our parents in the baby boomer generation, the silent generation, that's not something that was discussed. If you struggle with any type, you're not depressed, go sit down somewhere, go take a nap, go take a bath. Come on, you need to go to church. And so these are some hindrances in our community. We kind of threw it under the rug. And so even now, a lot of people are very uncomfortable talking about it. And so for me, I recognize that even as a young Black woman, a young Black minister in the church, I see people struggling. I see the signs. And so it's like, we don't have to continue to hide behind this role of being a strong Black woman, strong Black man, or a clergy leader, and you're struggling. It's a myth. And so strength is the exact opposite of what society taught us. Strength is vulnerability. Strength is unmasking. Strength is telling somebody that you're not okay. Strength is seeking help. Strength is sharing with people. And so many times in our culture, we haven't allowed the space to be safe. And so people struggle and they suffer silently. They feel like a burden. They feel misunderstood because in our community, mental health looks different. And so our symptoms may not mirror, our Caucasian counterpart or our Asian counterpart or our Latino counterpart. And so mental illness looks differently, specifically to Black people. And so many times we label anxiety as bad nerves. It's not bad nerves. It has absolutely nothing to do with your nerves. And so many people struggle with anxiety, but we heard what they just got bad nerves. They're a little touched. No, they are struggling with mental illness. And so I just want to say that anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, bipolar disorder, those things are not a result of a lack of faith. And so it's not a spiritual issue. And so that's the reason why I created the Jesus in Therapy tees and the Jesus in Therapy buttons, because you can have God, Jesus, and therapy. We have to change the way in which we view how God operates. God is big enough to call therapists to equip other people outside of clergy. And so many times we limit the healing power of God to all things that are deemed spiritual. And so God calls and equips therapists. And so we have to be open to the many ways in which God calls and equips people. Medication may be your form of healing, and that's okay. And so just getting to a place of embracing all of that without the stigma. And also, April 2018, I was going for a routine physical. I think it had been 6 or 7 years since I had my yearly physical, so I'm nervous. I'm in there, nerve shot. I'm like, Lord, something wrong with me. Oh my gosh, what if something wrong? So going through all of those thoughts. And the nurse checked my blood pressure. And so at this point, when she went to put the blood pressure cup on my arm, blood pressure, boom, hit the roof. I could feel my heart pounding out of my chest. Boom, boom, boom. I started feeling like chest pains. Hands started trembling. And so my blood pressure was like 173 over 100 and something, heart rate 125. The physician came in, she was white, and she she's like, I'm gonna order EKG. She's going crazy. And so that scared me even more. And so the nurse, she walked out, she left out, she came back in, and she said, you know what, to the physician, I think I know what's going on. And so she did some breathing exercises with me. Invited me to do an exercise called the tapping exercise. And so we did that, and they checked my blood pressure again, decreased significantly. So at the time, though, that this was happening, shaking, chest pain, all of that. And so the nurse, I thank God for her. She was white as well. And she was also a psychotherapist. So how often is your nurse a psychotherapist? And so had it not been for her, I could have potentially been misdiagnosed. And again, that goes with the lack of cultural competence as it relates to Black people regarding mental health. So the nurse was like, I believe this is anxiety. And so they suggested that I see a therapist. And I was on board. So I saw a therapist later that month. And so I have been seeing one ever since. I think it is a blessing. And so I don't believe that my titles are to the point that I'm unable to receive help from someone else. Being a qualified mental health professional, you cannot counsel yourself. That's just I'm not my own life coach. No. And so it's like you need people to help you, and that's okay. And so I embrace all of that as I grow and as I become. And I believe that the most important relationship that we have is with ourselves. Until we truly learn how to embrace and understand ourselves, how can we receive or accept and embrace the love of God and Jesus? How can we embrace and love our neighbors? How can we love anybody? Like, we have to first work that out with ourselves. And so I'm committed to doing the work. And so again, as a result, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder. But when I went back with my therapist, as we went back down memory lane, I realized that it was things that were present all along. Chewing my jaw, avoidance, what were other, like biting my nails, just a lot of behaviors that I did not realize. And so it was there all along. And so unresolved anxiety will always find somewhere to house itself. So typically a diagnosis is the icing on the cake to what's been happening all along. And so for me, I just want people in the Black community to understand that you can have Jesus, God, and therapy. You are not exempt from mental health. We all have mental health. You are not exempt from mental illness. And so post-traumatic stress disorder is not limited to war veterans. And so you matter. Your mental health matters. Be intentional about learning more. And so the way in which we promote mental health awareness in the Black community is educating ourselves. And so we have to educate ourselves on what does trauma look like, what does anxiety look like, what does it mean to be Black and depressed, what is race-based stress, and how does that affect me, and how does that impact me. And so that is a part of my why. And so I'm unashamed. And so the teas were created to promote mental health awareness in the Black community. So therefore, if I go into a space, or you purchase a tea and you go into a space, I hope that someone stops and pause for a moment and they say, you know what, I'm struggling, but this helps me to see that, you know, it's okay. I pray that it'll awaken spaces, that it'll spark conversations, and also bring awareness to the lack of cultural competence that is within our communities, that the lack of cultural competence in healthcare. Physicians are more likely to diagnose Black people with high blood pressure than anxiety. And so you may go to a doctor and your true diagnosis should be depression, but you get diagnosed with something else. And so just being aware. And so again, creating that awareness, creating that knowledge so that we can continue to promote mental health awareness so that people do not have to suffer silently. And so again, you matter. Your mental health matters. Black mental health matters. And you can have Jesus in therapy, boo. I do. It's all right. Period. Holla. Oh, if you'd like to purchase this tea, click the link in my bio. Shop Melanin Mental Health and Ministry. July is Minority Mental Health Awareness Month, so you can rock this tea and help spread the word, create awareness, and stop stigma within the Black community. Holla. Now I dance.